Thank you for joining us today. I'm your host, Tracy Bennett. In studio with me are certified financial planners Tony Payne and Tyler Cook. What's up, guys?
Another great
good
day.
Conversation. We're going to talk about early retirement. If you're getting ready to jump ship, we want to make sure that you're covered until Medicare begins. Now, I want to talk a little bit first about the difference, maybe not the difference, but a lot of people get confused between Medicare and Medicaid. We're talking about Medicare.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, Medicare starts at 65. Medicaid, much more needs-based, can trigger at other times. So really the focus is you're pre-65. You don't have Medicare built in yet. You can't rely on that for health care, but you've saved enough. You want to retire. What do you do for health care? That's what we're talking about.
Okay. I want to understand the coverage gap, first of all. I have a lot of people in my network that are very confused between the age, when to start, when to file, when it's the right month. They get overwhelmed between the Social Security and Medicare conversation. So maybe talk about very quickly what is Medicare, how it works with your insurance, what it does, what its purpose is.
Yeah. So age 65 is the number to have in your head. That's when you qualify for Medicare. And you want to start the enrollment process, what do you think, 3 to 6 months? Before that is typically when you start to
officially 3 months, but to start looking at it 6 makes sense.
Yeah, and by the way, there's good Medicare advisors all across the country that help do that for people to review, because it's a lot, right?
That was my next question. Soup. Who do you call?
Yeah, there's a lot that's out there. There's different professionals, but some of these will give you advice without having to pay out of pocket, and they're reimbursed on the back end when you select whichever policy you go with. But age 65 is the threshold to think of for Medicare. The reason why people get confused with Social Security is because it's kind of intertwined, right, with the tax laws, the way the law is written. Social Security you can get as early as 62, or wait till as late as 70 to start collecting. So the Medicare age is kind of right in the middle of that at 65. The idea being there's different parts to it, A, B, C, D, go down the list. There's literally alphabet soup. What I think people have to pay attention to is pre-65, what are you going to do now, right? What's the game plan? That's honestly why you see a lot of people working at different stores as greeters or Starbucks or whatever, because they can get health insurance. We'll put some numbers to it, Tony, but I've seen recently too, just a few weeks ago, a couple retired at age 59. Mm-hmm. So again, we got 6 years to plan for to keep their current coverage, which is one of those old grandfathered in policies, $3,000 a month just for the two of them. Ooh. That's a real story. And so it all depends upon your level of plan and everything else you're doing. But I think on average, it's still thousands of dollars per month.
Your health needs, right?
Well, yeah, but it's just the base cost of the premium itself. Because then you still have your out-of-pockets, you have your co-pays. There's a lot there before you go on Medicare to plan for.
Yeah, it can really paint a lot of different pictures. I mean, if you did your time in the military and you have access to health care there, wonderful, things may feel covered. You're free. Mm-hmm. And in some other scenarios, you know what, you worked for this wonderful employer and they'll provide retiree health care. That may kick in prior to 65 as well. Other employers may say, you know what, we're not going to provide it, but here's an extra check. Here's a healthcare subsidy or a healthcare, support payment. So depending upon the employer that you work for and where you're at, there might be those kinds of programs to be mindful of, and especially early on when you're looking at potential careers or where might you stick around for a while, knowing what happens for, if I retire pre-65, what's your healthcare policy? What's that look like? It's really important.
Yeah, I'd like to go further with that, because let's use the example of somebody who's in their 40s, prime working years, 50s even, and they're thinking about that early retirement. They've done the right things. To your point, they've planned. They can do it from a cash flow standpoint. They can afford it. You still have time to plan ahead and use the tools that are available prior to hitting 65 to really set yourself up in a very nice, almost tax-free scenario as well to pay for portions of your premium. So things like HSA accounts are huge. If you have access to that, you can continue to build that bucket now.
And tell people what that is.
Yeah, a health savings account. So it allows you to put in tax-deductible money today. You can invest it in a lot of scenarios. It grows tax-deferred. And if you use it in the future, right, for medical expenses, that's tax-free.
Is that only
triple tax?
I thought you could only get that from your employer, though.
That depends. If you're a business owner, it's tied to employment, right? So it's tied to that piece.
It's not part of a market.
And even better, it's tied to your health insurance.
Correct.
So if you have a high deductible plan, you could have an HSA account. And it's really tricky sometimes, like we're saying. Your employer might offer one too, you don't have to use that one if you have an HSA eligible plan, but your employer, if they're contributing, they're going to contribute to that account. So it's kind of neat to just keep it in one sometimes.
How's that work? Let's say you have an HSA through your employer and you decide to retire and leave the company. Do you take that money with you?
Yeah, it's your money.
So
Yep.
It's yours.
Different than FSAs.
They just stop contributing to it.
Correct. Yeah, it's your money. You're in control of it. And that's the idea. If you're going to retire before 65, now you got a bucket of money there that you can use to pay for premiums. And even in the future, too, there's a special rule right now in the IRS, too. Even after age 65, you can use HSAs for non-medical expenses and avoid any penalties. Still have to pay income tax if it's not medical expenses. But the idea being it's like another IRA for people who have the time to save. And you're not only, again, you're getting a tax deduction today, gross tax deferred, and it's tax-free on the back end. So that's a triple tax advantage. So that would be one thing I would look at for somebody who says, I want to retire at 59. Or what are we doing now to build the buckets to prepare for that? Because $2,000 a month, that's a lot.
Yeah. And we have podcasts about that subject if you're interested in looking those up. Is COBRA still a thing? Because
Yeah, sure is.
I remember when I left my job years and years ago, there was a gap, and I had to use COBRA. So there's COBRA, and then there's Marketplace, right?
So COBRA allows you to extend what your prior employer, if you had workplace benefits, so there's a certain list of them you could extend or have the option to, but you're paying full freight for that. So where your employer might have picked up half the cost or 100%, whatever amount they did, you have the option to extend it for up to 18 months in most cases, and then you're paying that full premium. So you're able to keep your insurance, and depending upon when you retire or the terms of separation, you might have already planned for that, like you're saying, Tyler. You know the expense, you planned on it, and by the end of 18 months, you're on Medicare. You might synchronize it that way, but that's really important to plan ahead.
So you're 63 and a half, right? 65's on the horizon. You could ride COBRA off until you start Medicare is what you're saying.
Okay.
Right. Now, here's the thing, too. I think why somebody might do that, even though they look at the premium and go, oh, my gosh, they realize what their employer was paying the whole time as well. But you might do that because of doctors. Are they in network? Maybe you like your current plan and you want to ride that as long as you possibly can, not have to go out onto the marketplace, shop it around, and then risk losing access to your doctors.
Good point.
Yeah,
That's really relevant, especially if you've got pre-existing health conditions, or you're older and you've been through the mill and you like your doctor network.
My example earlier of the $3,000 a month, the reason why they decided to keep that plan was because they have access to all their doctors. That was the big reason.
What is, in my research, I've located a bullet point about shopping the ACA marketplace. So let's talk about what ACA means, what it is, and how it can cost less than COBRA.
Yeah, the Affordable Care Act. So depending upon the marketplace, going to the healthcare.gov, the website where basically you can see, am I eligible for healthcare? Depending upon the level of premium you want to pay, whether it's a bronze, a gold, a silver, depending upon your zip code even, premiums vary there.
What does ACA mean?
Affordable Care Act.
Oh.
Yeah. So the
We got
there's so many letters here.
That was a blonde moment. I only live in this environment.
Not at all. But see, I can't help but laugh because that's how complicated this stuff is.
ACA is Obamacare, so that's the same thing.
Oh, okay.
There you go.
That's
what everybody knows it as.
Yeah, that's what I know it as.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're
So
on.
yeah, you go out there to shop. Again, the zip code thing is real. Even in my zip code, there's 3 different providers. It's county, I should say county, and then zip code within that, and that limits your choices on what's available. So you can go to healthcare.gov, play around, see what's out there. But to your point, it's about what level of care do you want. That's the whole Olympics of the bronze,
It's based
silver,
on
and
zip
gold.
code?
Yeah, your county and your zip code is that
I
detailed.
didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Basically, the reimbursement rates, how they pay for health care. So different regions might have different costs. So that's going to drive different premiums.
Yep.
So here we are.
Wow, I didn't know that. Do doctors elect to be part of that network, or how does that work? Do we know?
Basically, it depends on their healthcare insurance and their acceptance. So there's a little bit of behind the scenes there, but that's why it's so important, like you were saying, to review with your doctors ahead of time, whether you're retiring, whether you're going on Medicare, whether you're looking at a different Affordable Care Act plan. The idea of getting with their front desk to say, do you accept this? And name the plan, name the numbers, give them the whole dirt there, and that way they can say, yep, we'll accept that, or that one might give us some problems. If you have an option, keep what you have.
You talked a little earlier about retiree coverage. Let's kind of paint a picture how that compares to the other options a little more.
Usually
Yeah.
it's a lot better. It's a Mona Lisa compared to a fifth grader's art, maybe. In most cases, if I can say it that way. But when the employers are that mindful of treating their employees right and retirees right, usually they build it in such a way that it's not the gimmick coverage to say, oh, we offered you something. Usually, my experience at least, they're doing it because they really want their employee or their retiree to be happy in those early years of retirement. So for the most part, they seem to be worth their weight in gold if you have access to one.
And you'll see a similar concept like with pension plans, right? STRS, so State Teachers Retirement System here in Ohio. They have healthcare coverage through that. And there's been all debates on, is it sustainable and cost, and retirees get upset about premiums going up, which understandably, right? But there's the whole actuarial piece to that as well, and just the rising cost of healthcare is a real thing. So if we can go back to the pre-65 thing though for a second, just what do you do from a strategy standpoint? What we tend to do is we'll look at a cash flow scenario, and then we actually take healthcare as a separate goal. So you want to retire, that's one goal. You want to use or you want to have to pay for healthcare in retirement, but the reality is those two costs are inflating at different rates. So on average, inflation since the 80s is about 3.5% roughly. If you look at a broad metric, healthcare is going up more like 6% right now. So we take those two buckets, your healthcare costs, your base and living needs, inflate them at different rates. Why do we do that? Well, obviously healthcare becomes a bigger portion of your life as you get older, but the premiums are also going up much quicker than everything else. So the idea there, you can show people on a very cash flow based system to show you, okay, here's what it's going to cost you prior to Medicare age, prior to 65. Call it 20. I'm just rounding here, but call it $24,000 a year, right? A married couple, $2,000 a month. Then you see on the projection, you'll see a drop, and it drops down to maybe $10,000 a year, and that's when you go on Medicare, right? But this idea that it might be free, sometimes that gets talked about. It's not free, right? You're still paying for things, and there's what's called Part B of Medicare. So you have Part A, Part B, Part C is the supplemental, D is prescription drugs. But Part B premiums, what I've seen a lot is people maybe when they start taking Social Security, they're like, oh, wait, hold on a second. I didn't get what they told me I was going to get in my letter. And why is that? Well, because the Social Security Administration reduces your retirement benefit by your Part B premium. So if it says you're going to get $2,000 a month,
I'm sorry,
your Part B
you just
I'll
spoke
get
a
there.
foreign language.
I'll get there.
Yeah.
So let me get there. So $2,000 a month, let's say that's your Social Security benefit. Part B premiums are $200. You're going to get $1,800 instead of the full $2,000 that Social Security said you were going to get for retiring. So they take it right off the top. That's a surprise for a lot of people. So the point being is, if you're going to be before age 65 retiring, have the bucket of money there. Tax-deferred tools like an HSA is wonderful. A brokerage account would be another thing outside of just having cash on hand. But plan for that now. Build that bucket now, because the reason why we say brokerage accounts is these other plans like IRAs and 401ks, if you take the money out before a certain age, you're going to get dinged with tax penalties. 10% penalty in a lot of cases.
The taxes seem to be an albatross when you get closer to retirement. I mean, you're taxed on everything.
You are. Yeah, Social Security is taxable for a lot of people. It's not everybody, but it is. And that's thankfully, again, our tools that we use factor all these things in. So we can get really detailed with it. And
It's crazy. People don't think they need a financial planner when they're going well, I'm already in retirement. I don't need the help. And the taxation part of it, to me, personally, is the one that I'm most concerned about.
Well,
at some point, you can't do it all yourself.
There's a term called IRMA, and some of our retirees have already heard of
She's
that.
nice.
Well, very familiar with IRMA, and the idea is there can be an income-based adjustment on your Medicare premiums. So, like you were just saying, as we go through,
What is an IRMA?
the idea of there's an income adjustment. So if you make more, you're going to pay more.
I heard that part. But
So I'm not going to go through the acronym.
It's an acronym.
It's just
that's an
not
acronym
worth
for
it,
something.
but
It's an acronym to make
Is it a
you-
retirement tool or something?
Very
sorry.
basically, I'll just say real clearly. Very basically, it's a way to make you pay more for Part B coverage if you make a certain amount of money.
So when you make more, you pay more in a premium.
Correct.
So that's
Yep.
the adjustment. What they call it is IRMA.
Yeah.
But the idea is if you're just, let me get my pension. I don't care. I don't need a planner anymore. Just give me a stream of income. Well, if that stream of income hits their threshold, you're going to pay more in your premium than if you said, you know what, give me a little bit less this year and I'll take it out of a brokerage account. Or maybe I'll borrow the money from my home equity so I don't go over a threshold. It's those things that if you're just living and you're in retirement and you're taking money out, or maybe you made it really easy and you turned your annuity on or something, you might give up all that flexibility of, well, what are my Medicare premiums this year? How am I going to drive that? You might be in one of the higher brackets there.
And I don't want to get too detailed with IRMA, but the thing that catches people up or trips people up is that there's a 2-year lag, right? So if they look at your income from 2 years ago to make your current Medicare Part B premium. So if it's 2026 now, they're looking at your 2024 income to decide are you affected by IRMA or not. So it's a 2-year lag. So people forget 2 years ago what they did. Maybe they had a big transaction, like you said, a business sale, took more money out of their IRA.
Do we know?
That's the IRS. Just you can ask them. I don't know. But the idea being, it's like I think it's because people file extensions and it's delayed.
Plenty of good planners over the years learn how to manipulate these programs, and they have to fill in the gaps.
Yeah.
That's what it is. I mean, when you know, on month 13 I can rig the system to get more, most people do that.
Yeah.
And that's effectively planning. It's not rigging anything. It's just being deliberate in, if I take $1 more out of this, my premium's going to go up. My tax rate may go up. I might lose this benefit. That's the puzzle pieces of financial planning that we do and really go through. And it's that letter soup that, we were laughing at earlier, ACA, 401k, all these letters. Each of those has a different impact that, when plenty of people can retire, they're okay. But if you know how to work those letters and acronyms, you're going to probably end up with more.
Yeah, and going back to the tax piece, because that's very relevant with healthcare. Remember, when the ACA was passed, it was deemed a tax bill by the IRS. So because it implicates, there's so many implications on the tax side of things. So it's not just about where's your doctor, how much you're going to pay. There's so many tax
That's the marketing
variables.
focus, though. So it takes that off of the
But
radar.
it all comes down to income and taxes, and that's a big piece to it. So I think that's key too. There was something else you said that I wanted to touch on, but I think just the acronyms is key. And I would really go back to, if you are 65, look for like a Medicare advisor. You got to be careful, right? You don't want to get scammed and whatnot. There's a lot of scams in Medicare, as we know. But the point being is, use an expert. Use an expert to help you.
And ask how they're paid.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
Find out how they're paid.
No doubt.
Because some are paid from other companies,
Yeah.
not you.
Oh, sorry. I remember what it was.
All right, what was it?
You were talking about game in
I'm
the system,
excited.
whatever. Like you hate this phrase. You said it for years. People say, "Oh, it's a tax loophole." You're like, there are no loopholes. It's the law. It's the tax law. You're just planning and using strategy.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not a tax loophole. If you're doing everything by what the IRS says to do,
Right.
you're just being proactive and planning. So I love when you say that.
It's a big chess game, and the help doesn't stop just because you've landed in retirement
Yeah.
and you're on the home stretch. You really need the help as much, if not more.
Never too late. Yeah.
Yeah.
These are where the thousands and thousands could come in potentially, of when you time a business sale, when you cash in stock options, these things that might feel non-negotiable, but with a little bit of planning, you can really leverage things.
Mm-hmm. Good to know. Did we talk about health sharing or short-term plans?
We didn't.
No.
Okay. So what should somebody weigh in? Let's talk about what that is, and what should somebody weigh in before choosing a short-term or sharing plan. I've actually never heard those terms.
Yeah, the short-term one's a little risky because a lot of those exclude like pre-existing conditions and kind of the bigger things. So that's kind of the reason why people like it, is the premium is a lot less than a traditional type health insurance plan, but it comes with risks. So typically that's kind of younger, healthier people. That's the gauge. But if you have other issues, you may not be covered for those big catastrophic type things based upon pre-existing.
And each one's a little different. Some of them are more faith-based, where they try to share a pool of who's in the insurance pool. And again, it's not insurance, so it's not state regulated. There's not a contract to say, if you broke your knee or something, or if you tore something, we have to fix it. But within there, it's established. That's the agreement. So we've had people who've had great experiences using them, have had no troubles. Others where it didn't work out the way they thought. So it's not to say they're all bad or they're all good, but they are different than insurance. They're not subject to insurance rules. So that's where you just really have to ask the right questions.
Yeah, I think if you're looking at that, you start with what's not covered.
That's a good point.
To start there, and that you should be able to access that information from whoever you're talking to.
Okay. Preparing for Medicaid ahead of time. That's kind of been a main vein of influence in the conversation today. At what age do you start?
Now.
Yeah, with
Whatever that
Medicare.
I think I'm too late.
No.
Whatever now means to you, though, I think is the point.
Right. I mean, the idea, though, of what planning is there, you hit on a big one, Tyler, IRMA, and looking back the 2-year window, being able to challenge that. And again, without going into the weeds to go to details that are beyond us today, if you know that, hey, I've retired, I was making $600,000 a year, it's 2 years later, I haven't made that, or even a year later, that's a time to talk to an expert to say, is there something I should do about this? I feel like my Medicare premium's too high. Maybe it is. So the idea of when you time a business sale, even, you know what, you finally did it, you're there, you're ready to go to Florida or something. How do I time this so that I'm not paying the highest Medicare premium right off the bat? And that's important. That can be done too.
I think, did I say Medicaid or Medicare?
You said Medicaid, sorry.
Yeah.
We let it go.
Yeah,
It's-
we
I
let
don't
it
know
go.
why I
it's
did
just
that.
letter
I'm
soup.
looking at
Easy to
Medicare and
do.
I just said Medicaid. Sorry, folks.
Easy to do.
All right, this is a huge conversation that we could go. I think we could go on and on about. Do your research, contact the specialist, and we're always here for you too. Thanks for joining us today. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.
Boxland Media. Think big.